So,
Preparation of our next conference. Microphone around.
so it seems
One,
like
two.
we're settled in. Organizing a conference, there will be a lot of talks about small conferences, I guess, and
Small and larger.
okay, and the participants will be introduced by our speaker.
Okay. So our panel is almost full. We're waiting on some people who will probably be here within the next 5-10 minutes. They'll join us on stage. Can I turn this down a little bit?
Come on, it's 15 minutes
So, to introduce the people on the panel, first we have Emmanuel from HOPE, from 2600 Conferences in New York. Emmanuel. Next we have someone who I only met today, but I'm told is responsible for the HAX conferences in the past. You are? Do we have a microphone?
Rob.
You're Rob. Do we have a handheld microphone that we can pass around? Oh, here we go. Okay. Next we have Scott from FrostCon, which is a conference outside Bonn in Germany. We have Philip from FOSDEM, which is the Free Open Source Developers Conference in Brussels. We have Stuart from Lug Radio Live, which is a conference in Birmingham in the UK. We have David from TourCon and TourCamp in the US. Esther from PlumberCon, and Christian, who was involved in the State of the Map conference for OpenStreetMap last year in Limerick?
Last year.
Okay. So basically the idea behind this is to give you guys an idea of the work that goes into organizing an event like this, our own events that we've organized, and to show that even though the overall thing is a big project to take on, it's not impossible. It's very doable if you delegate, if you split the task into multiple parts. So I suppose one of the lies. Another thing you'll probably hear multiple times through this is that for the month or week before the conference, you will have no social life. Your life will be dedicated and devoted to organizing and getting last-minute stuff together. So I suppose one of the first things to talk about, an important thing, is money. How you get money in to actually fund the conference. And the idea with this is that we'll just run through everyone's opinions and what they've encountered throughout it. So Emmanuel, how do you fund HOPE?
Well, that's a loaded question. Well, basically, we probably don't do anything in the standard way. We have a conference that's pretty much staffed by volunteers, and much like this one here, speakers, for the most part, make their own way, pay their own way, and we try and keep the costs down as much as possible. So we're able to fund the biggest expenses, which is renting a hotel in the middle of New York City, and setting up the infrastructure, renting equipment, buying some things that we need to do. We get that pretty much covered by advanced ticket sales that we stick up on our online store. And basically, we don't really know until maybe a couple of months after the conference has ended if we broke even, lost money, made money. In fact, only a couple of months ago, someone sent me a bill saying, "Oh, I forgot to send you this bill for all this equipment." It's like, thanks a lot. That's another several $1,000s that I didn't realize we had spent. So if we had to do this with bookkeepers and charts and graphs and figure out if we're making any money and whether this makes sense or that makes sense, I think we probably wouldn't do it because it would seem like it wasn't any fun. So if there's any advice I can offer, if you're interested in running any kind of convention, it's don't follow the rules. Make your own rules and just believe you can do it regardless. Now, the worst thing that can happen is, okay, you'll lose some money, and we've done that. We've lost money in the past. But what you gain out of it is much more valuable than money, because every one of our conferences, at the end, people say it's changed their lives. A lot of people are here as a result of that. A lot of people come to New York City and meet friends that they have for the rest of their lives. And even if we lose money every time, I'd still want to do it. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, how does HAR make money?
FOSDEM is a bit different. FOSDEM is a free conference. We don't charge anything for people to show up, and many people do. I think we guesstimate, because we don't charge money, we don't have registration, so we guesstimate the number of visitors at basically dividing the area of the room we have by the standard area of human being, and we come up with roughly 4,500 people. So we actually have a budget, and we have sponsors. We love our sponsors. And then we give away free T-shirts for tax reasons in return for a voluntary mandatory donation. And that funds the conference. So every year, Folsdam is always in February. In the summer, we start thinking about, okay, how much money do we need? How much money do we have left over from the last year? And then we start harassing sponsors. Interestingly enough, sponsors often start harassing us before we start calling them. So we end up having to count money and doing the what do we have left over thing. And usually we can do some cool extras because Folsdam is cool and people seem to like it.
Cool.
Is there anybody here that feels like becoming motivated into organizing subculture things or events like this for their own community or smaller, bigger? Anybody here that thinks, well, maybe I want to get involved in this? Is there anybody? Oh, there's a couple people there. That's cool. That's good.
You do it next time.
Yeah. Go ahead. How is FrostCon sponsored or funded?
FrostCon is a little bit like FOSBAM, open source event. We have an entrance fee of €5 for 2 days. It's mainly paid by sponsors. We get the location for free. It's our university, and so we don't have to pay anything for this. And but the main income is to sponsors. That's how it works.
One thing that we've found ourselves as well is that sponsors like seeing where their money is going. So at our own conference, SkyCon, 2 years ago, we had Red Hat sponsor us, but it was on the condition that they sponsored one element of it. So they sponsored the meal. And they like being able to see all the receipts. They like to see exactly where the money they've put into it has ended up. Very transparent, rather than, and it's much easier to get money off people this way. It's much easier to go to someone and say, please sponsor our speakers' accommodation, please sponsor our speakers' flight, travel costs. Because the actual sponsoring entity can then say, okay, there's a fixed amount that we're paying on this, we're giving this amount of value, and it's much easier for them to actually commit internally that kind of money.
And you can get away with a lot of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Just to illustrate, not that I would advise anybody to do it this way today, but our first event that we did completely ourselves in '93, the financial planning consisted of a large box and later a safe. Like you would get for your house, a small metal safe, which we tilted on its back because it wouldn't close anymore because we were stacking the money in there. Like basically crumbled up banknotes were stuffed in this safe, and then somebody came because they wanted money for the big tent or for something, and we got it out of this safe that we opened up because it was on his back. And at the end of the event, the safe was empty, but there was no. We basically did a spot landing on zero without having any financial planning, controlling, budgeting, none of this whatsoever. So. If you're lucky, you can get away with crazy things, and if you're unlucky, you should just make sure that it's not people, but some kind of entity that you've set up that you can then bankrupt. Events,
provided you don't want to do it again in the future.
Events are financially risky to a point where, unless you're really professional and do events every couple of weeks, they're not a money-making proposition, and they're a huge financial liability. You can break even, you can make a little money, but you can lose truckloads of money.
Sure, Emmanuel?
By the way, Rob is, I don't know if you guys know this, but he's been involved since the beginning in every single Dutch conference. He's inspired the hacker conferences in New York, and this is his first conference in Holland as an attendee where he's relaxing and enjoying it. So we owe him a lot because I don't think any of us would be here without his efforts. So